Jared Blake never believed in fate, until the night he comforted a crying child at a wedding, only to look up and find the boy's mother was the woman he once loved, and the child, unmistakably, was his. Welcome to Mr. Roberts Stories. If you love gripping tales of love, betrayal, revenge, and shocking twists, you've just found your new home. Here, every story will pull you in, make your heart race, and leave you guessing until the very last word. Now, here's the deal. Watch till the end because the best surprises are always saved for last. And if you enjoy the story, don't forget to hit that like button, drop a comment to share your thoughts, and subscribe so you never miss another unforgettable story. Every story on Mr. Roberts Stories isn't just something you watch, it's something you feel, something that stays with you long after the video ends. So, sit back, relax, and let's dive into today's story. Trust me, you're going to want to watch every second. This is Mr. Roberts Stories, where every story is an experience. The late afternoon sun poured over the sprawling estate in East America, gilding the trimmed hedges and sweeping lawns in a warm, almost hypnotic glow. A gentle breeze carried the scent of freshly cut grass mixed with roses and faint hints of vanilla from the wedding cakes being carried past white linen-draped tables. Lanterns strung between ancient oak trees swayed gently, casting golden patterns across the cobblestone paths. Guests laughed and clinked glasses, their voices blending with the soft notes of a string quartet playing near the fountain. Everything was meticulously perfect, except for Jared Blake. Jared adjusted the cuff links of his tailored suit, feeling the familiar constriction of polished perfection. He had counted the minutes in his mind before the event, precisely 37, and he intended to honor that schedule. He'd offer polite congratulations, nod at the small talk about yachts and golf tournaments, maybe smile at a few old acquaintances. Then he would retreat. Back to the penthouse. Back to the silence he had built around himself, one layer at a time, during years of ambition and deals that made other men's jaws drop. But then, something broke through the hum of polite conversation and delicate music. A soft, plaintive sob. The kind of crying that did not demand attention, but tugged at the heart with quiet insistence. Jared's gaze swept the garden, scanning the guests. There, by the edge of the marble fountain, a small boy sat alone on the steps, shoulders shaking, hands clutching a balloon that had once been red but now hung limp, defeated. The tuxedo was slightly too large, the bow tie crooked, and the tears streaked down a face that looked almost impossibly mature for its years. Guests passed him by, laughing and whispering, blind to his distress. "Hey there," Jared found his voice, softer than usual, almost hesitant. "You okay?" The boy looked up, dark brown eyes glistening, rimmed with tears. "My juice it spilled. And I can't find my mommy." Jared's chest tightened without warning. He didn't know why, but he felt compelled to act. He reached into his pocket and drew out a silk handkerchief, monogrammed and expensive, and offered it to the boy. "Happens to the best of us. What's your name?" "Eli," the boy whispered. "Eli," Jared repeated, tasting the name on his tongue. "I'm Jared. Are you a prince?" The boy's small lips curved into a solemn nod. "You look like one." Jared chuckled quietly, a sound that felt strange even to him. "Not a prince. Just someone who's felt a little lost sometimes." As he straightened Eli's bow tie and brushed away a tear, a feeling of recognition struck him like a jolt of lightning. The child's stance, the stubborn tilt of his chin, the subtle ways he shifted on the marble step, it was familiar. Too familiar. Then he heard the voice. "Eli, baby, where are you?" The sound was sharp, urgent, and full of the kind of fear only a parent could feel. Jared's chest seized, every nerve alert. From behind the blooming hydrangea bushes, she appeared. Naomi Brooks. She had stepped into the sunlight, and for a heartbeat, Jared forgot to breathe. Time slowed. Naomi was breathtaking. Her natural curls framed a face full of strength and vulnerability. The navy dress she wore hugged her figure without effort, simple yet elegant, moving with her in a rhythm that suggested both grace and purpose. And her eyes, wide, searching, sharp, found Jared immediately. "Step away from my son," she said, voice firm but trembling. Jared froze, every plan to slip quietly out the door evaporating. Naomi! His voice cracked, betraying the control he normally wielded like armor. Eli blinked between them, confusion etched across his small face. Mommy, you know him? The world seemed to tilt. The boy's trusting gaze, the way he had approached Jared without hesitation, suddenly made sense. Every piece of the puzzle fell into place in a rush that stole Jared's breath. He's mine, isn't he? Jared whispered, barely able to form the words. Naomi's silence said more than words ever could. The tension between them was instantaneous, magnetic, filled with years of unspoken grievances, unfulfilled promises, and a love that had never truly died. Naomi stepped closer, her protective stance almost like a shield between Jared and the child, yet her eyes betrayed a flicker of something he thought long lost, recognition, perhaps even longing. Jared swallowed, struggling for composure. I didn't know. Naomi's gaze sharpened. You didn't know? 5 years, Jared. 5 years you were absent, and you didn't know? He closed his eyes, a familiar weight pressing down, one he had buried under contracts, board meetings, and endless acquisitions. He had built an empire, but he had lost the one person and the one child that mattered more than anything money could buy. I thought I was doing what was best for us, for our future, he murmured, voice low, almost breaking. You built walls, Naomi replied, the sting of 5 years of solitude lacing every word. Walls around yourself and everyone who tried to love you. I carried him alone because you weren't there. You weren't willing to be a father. He wanted to argue, to explain, but the truth clawed at him with a ferocity he couldn't deny. He had missed birthdays, bedtime stories, first steps. He had chosen meetings over moments that mattered. Eli tugged gently at his sleeve. Mr. Jared, do you want to play pirates? The innocence, the simple trust, broke something open inside him. He looked down at the boy, really looked, and felt an unfamiliar swell of love and protectiveness. Ahoy, Captain Eli, he said, allowing himself a full, unrestrained laugh. Ahoy, Mr. Jared. Eli replied, his small voice carrying across the garden like sunshine. Naomi's eyes softened slightly as she watched the interaction. It was tentative, cautious, but there was a flicker of hope in her gaze. For a moment, he saw the woman he had loved, the woman who had believed in him when he had lost faith in everything. I know I hurt you, Jared whispered, voice barely audible. You did, Naomi said, tears brimming. But I see you now. I see the man you could be. If you truly want to be part of this life, it has to be real. No half measures. He nodded, a silent promise forming in his chest. He had built walls around his heart for years, but now, watching his son laugh, watching Naomi's cautious gaze, he understood something fundamental. Some empires could crumble without notice, but family was a fortress he wanted to protect. Eli pulled him closer, eyes shining. Can we go eat cake now? Yes, Jared said, standing and brushing imaginary dust from his suit. Let's go eat cake. Captain Eli. As they walked toward the reception, the sound of music, laughter, and distant ocean waves wrapped around them. For the first time in years, Jared felt the weight of absence lifting. He was no longer just a man defined by wealth and control. He was a father, a man capable of love, and perhaps, if Naomi allowed, a man ready to rebuild what had been lost. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the estate. Jared, Naomi, and Eli moved forward together, each step a tentative promise of what could be, a family rediscovered, a second chance unfolding in the golden glow of East American evening. The reception hall glittered under chandeliers, the light bouncing off crystal glasses and polished marble floors. Laughter swelled around the room as guests moved to the rhythm of a jazz quartet, their carefree joy echoing in every corner. To them, it was just another perfect East American wedding. To Jared, it felt like walking into the middle of a storm he had spent years trying to escape. He sat at a corner table with Eli beside him, the boy's hands sticky from frosting as he devoured a towering slice of vanilla cake decorated with flowers. Naomi sat across from them, her posture composed, her expression guarded. Between them lay 5 years of silence, regrets, and choices that could never be undone. Eli kicked his little legs under the table, humming a tune he must have picked up from the band. He glanced between his mother and Jared with the curiosity only a child could carry. "Mommy, can Mr. Jared come with us tomorrow? We're going to the park." Naomi's fork paused midair. Her eyes met Jared's for the briefest of moments before she forced a smile at her son. "We'll see, sweetheart." Jared's chest ached at her evasive answer, but he didn't argue. Not here, not now. He was still reeling from the discovery that the boy sitting beside him, this vibrant, innocent soul, was his flesh and blood. He had made billion-dollar deals, fought hostile takeovers, and commanded entire rooms with his presence, but in that moment, sitting with Eli, he felt like a man stripped bare, unsure of how to move forward. When Eli finished his cake and grew distracted by a group of children chasing each other near the dance floor, Naomi leaned closer, her voice low and sharp. "We need to talk." Outside, Jared followed her out of the hall into the cool evening air. The estate's gardens glowed under strings of lights, the hum of cicadas blending with the distant sound of laughter from inside. Naomi stopped near the stone balustrade overlooking a pond, her hands gripping the rail as though steadying herself. "You have no idea what it did to me," she began, her voice tight. "Raising him alone. Watching him grow up, wondering if I'd made the right decision, keeping him away from you." Jared's throat tightened. "You should have told me. Would it have mattered?" Her gaze burned into him. "You were consumed by your empire. Even when I was right there beside you, you weren't really there. What would you have done with a baby in the middle of all that?" He flinched. She was right. Back then, he had buried himself in contracts, mergers, and long nights in boardrooms. But still, knowing he had a son all this time and being denied those years felt like a wound that might never close. "I would have tried," he said softly, almost pleading. Naomi turned toward him fully, her curls catching the glow of the garden lights. "Tried? Jared, you couldn't even show up for dinner without answering your phone 3 times. You were building walls, around your company, around your heart, around us. And I was suffocating in the shadow of your ambition." The words sliced through him, sharp and merciless. He had known he wasn't perfect, but hearing it laid bare like this shattered his carefully constructed illusions. He stepped closer, his voice low but earnest. "I know I failed you. I know I wasn't the man you needed me to be. But Naomi, when I saw Eli tonight, everything shifted. He's not just a child to me, he's my son. And I want to be here for him. For us, if you'll let me." Naomi's eyes shimmered, but she didn't back down. "Do you even understand what you're asking? Being a father isn't about appearances or occasional visits. It's about presence, consistency, sacrifice. Can you honestly say you're ready for that?" Her words echoed in the cool night air, pressing against him like a weight he couldn't shrug off. For years, he had measured success by profits and accolades, but none of it had prepared him for this. And yet, staring at Naomi, at the woman he had once loved so fiercely, and thinking of Eli's innocent trust, he knew he couldn't turn away. "I can't erase the past," Jared said, his voice thick with emotion. "But I can choose differently now. I don't want to miss another moment of his life. Or yours." Naomi's lips parted as though to speak, but then closed again. She turned back to the pond, her reflection wavering in the water. The silence stretched between them, filled with all the things left unsaid. Finally, she whispered, "You hurt me, Jared. More than I thought I could ever be hurt. And I'm not sure I can trust you again." He reached out, hesitated, then gently touched her hand where it rested on the railing. The contact was electric, stirring memories of nights when they had whispered dreams to each other, back when the future seemed bright and love seemed enough. "Let me earn it," he said. "Let me prove that I can be the man you once believed in." Her breath caught, and for a moment, the hardness in her eyes softened. But before either of them could say more, Eli's voice rang out from the reception hall. "Mommy! Mr. Jared! They're playing my song." Naomi pulled her hand back, straightening. She wiped quickly at her eyes before turning toward the hall. "We should go back." Jared followed her inside, his heart pounding. The band had shifted into a lively tune, and children rushed to the dance floor, spinning and laughing. Eli ran to them, his joy infectious. Jared watched him, a smile tugging at his lips despite the storm inside him. Naomi stood beside him, her arms folded, her eyes fixed on her son. For a fleeting moment, their shoulders brushed, and Jared felt an almost magnetic pull. The music swelled, couples swayed, and in the chaos of laughter and clinking glasses, it was as though the world had narrowed to just the three of them. Jared leaned slightly closer, his voice barely audible over the music. "This doesn't have to be the end of our story." Naomi glanced at him, her expression unreadable. "That depends on whether you're ready to stop being the man who always walks away." Her words lingered as she stepped onto the dance floor to scoop Eli into her arms. Jared stood at the edge, torn between fear and longing, between the empire he had built and the family he had almost lost forever. For the first time in years, the future felt uncertain, and strangely, he welcomed it. The morning after the wedding broke with a muted sky, clouds stretched thin like brushed silk across the horizon. The coastal breeze swept through the streets of East America, stirring the scent of salt and wet pavement from the night's passing rain. Jared stood at the edge of a quiet park, his hands shoved into his jacket pockets, waiting. He hadn't slept much. His mind had been a whirlpool of memories, regrets, and the haunting softness of Naomi's voice when she had said, "That depends on whether you're ready to stop being the man who always walks away." He was here to prove he wouldn't. Naomi appeared on the path moments later, Eli skipping happily at her side, a small backpack bouncing on his shoulders. The sight rooted Jared to the spot. Naomi's hair, caught loose in the morning air, framed her face in curls that glowed against the overcast sky. She looked casual in jeans and a sweater, yet there was an elegance she couldn't hide. Beside her, Eli carried a toy sword, already immersed in some imagined adventure. When Eli spotted Jared, his entire face lit up. "Mr. Jared, you came." The boy barreled toward him, nearly colliding into his legs. Jared crouched down, startled by the sheer enthusiasm, and felt Eli wrap small arms around his neck. Something inside him broke open again, that unshakable, unfamiliar tenderness. "I told you I'd be here, Captain," Jared said, steadying his voice. "A pirate never breaks his word." Naomi approached slowly, her expression cautious. She folded her arms, watching Jared with sharp eyes that weighed every movement. "You didn't have to come." "I did," Jared replied, rising to his full height. "For him. For you." Naomi's lips pressed into a thin line, but she didn't argue. Instead, she nodded toward the playground ahead. "He's been waiting all week to try the pirate ship. You can join if you'd like." It wasn't much, but Jared recognized it as the smallest opening, a sliver of trust. He followed them into the park, past benches slick with dew, until they reached a wooden structure shaped like a ship. Children's laughter filled the air as they scrambled up ropes and shouted commands across the deck. Eli charged up the ladder, waving his toy sword. "I'm the captain. Mr. Jared, you be my first mate." Jared laughed, a sound that startled him in its ease. He climbed after Eli, careful not to ruin his polished shoes, and found himself face to face with a world of imagination he had long forgotten. "I, Captain Eli. What are our orders?" "Defend the treasure from the sea monsters." Eli pointed dramatically at a cluster of younger children on the swings. "They're attacking." Naomi sat on a nearby bench, watching. At first her arms remained folded, her guard firm, but as Jared hoisted Eli onto his shoulders and spun him in circles to fight the monsters, something in her eyes softened. She could see it, the connection raw and unforced. Jared wasn't faking this moment. He wasn't the aloof man she had left behind years ago. He was laughing, playful, utterly lost in Eli's joy. When Jared finally lowered Eli back to the ground, breathless but smiling, Naomi rose from the bench. She handed Eli a bottle of water, then looked at Jared, her tone even but heavy with meaning. "He doesn't let people in easily. But he let you in right away. Don't break that." Jared nodded, his chest tightening. "I won't." The three of them strolled along the walking trail afterward, Eli bouncing between them, narrating wild tales about hidden treasure and villains. Jared listened intently, answering every question, engaging with every detail, as though this little boy's world was the most important universe in existence. Naomi watched. She had built a life where Eli was safe, where she carried the burden alone to protect them both. Letting Jared in threatened to unravel the fragile stability she had fought for. And yet, seeing the two together stirred something she couldn't deny. They paused at a pond where ducks glided across the rippling surface. Eli crouched to toss crumbs from his pocket while Naomi and Jared stood a few feet apart. The tension between them was unspoken, electric. "I meant what I said last night," Jared murmured. "I want to be part of his life. Whatever it takes." Naomi's eyes remained fixed on the water. "Words are easy, Jared. Actions are what count." "Then let me show you," he insisted. "Let me show him." She finally turned to him, her gaze steady. "Do you even know what that means? No more disappearing into your office. No more walls. If you step into his life and then vanish, it'll destroy him. I can't let that happen." "I won't vanish," Jared said, his voice low and resolute. "I promise you that." For a long moment, they simply looked at each other. The years of hurt and distance hovered between them, but beneath it flickered the remnants of the love they had once shared. It wasn't gone. It had only been buried under scars and silence. Eli's laughter cut through the tension as he ran back toward them, his arms full of breadcrumbs. "The ducks love me." Jared bent down, ruffling his hair. "Of course they do, Captain. Everyone loves you." Naomi's breath caught at the sight, Jared kneeling there, his eyes shining with pride and affection. For a moment, she let herself imagine what life might have been if he had been there from the beginning. Birthdays, first steps, late-night fevers, all the things she had carried alone. The thought twisted something deep inside her. Later, as they walked back to the car, Eli dozed off in the back seat, his toy sword still clutched in one hand. The silence in the front was thick, charged with the weight of what had just transpired. Naomi finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "He likes you. More than I expected." Jared turned to look at her, his expression open, vulnerable in a way she hadn't seen in years. "And you? Do you still like me?" Her heart thudded painfully. For a second, she wanted to answer. To confess that despite everything, a part of her had never stopped loving him. But fear held her tongue. "I don't know," she admitted, eyes fixed on the road. "I don't know if I can." The confession hung between them, heavy but honest. Jared leaned back in his seat, exhaling slowly. He didn't push further, didn't argue. For now, it was enough that she hadn't closed the door completely. When they reached Naomi's house, a modest two-story with a porch wrapped in ivy, Jared carried Eli inside. He tucked the boy gently into bed, brushing a hand across his forehead as though he had been doing it for years. Naomi stood in the doorway, arms folded, watching with a complicated mixture of suspicion and longing. When Jared finally straightened, he looked at her, his voice low and tender. "I missed all of this. But I don't want to miss another day." Naomi's breath caught. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to. Instead, she whispered, "We'll see." Jared stepped past her toward the door, pausing just inches away. His presence enveloped her, familiar and dangerous all at once. For a heartbeat, it felt like the air itself was charged, urging her to lean in, to close the gap. But she didn't. And neither did he. Not yet. As Jared left into the fading light, Naomi closed the door behind him, pressing her back against it. Her heart pounded wildly, torn between fear and hope. Upstairs, Eli slept soundly, dreaming of pirates and treasure. Down the street, Jared walked into the uncertain night, carrying a promise he refused to break. The week unfolded with a rhythm Jared had never known before. Instead of boardrooms and endless phone calls, he found himself at playgrounds, school drop-offs, and late evenings spent reading pirate stories beside Eli's bed. It was foreign and disarming, yet strangely fulfilling. Naomi watched him closely, never letting her guard down completely. She noted the way Eli's laughter had grown louder, the way her son's eyes sparkled brighter when Jared was around. And yet, her heart refused to fully trust. She had lived through disappointment once before, She couldn't afford to let hope blind her again. But fate, as always, had a way of testing fragile beginnings. It started on a Thursday afternoon. Jared had promised to pick Eli up from school. Naomi had reluctantly agreed, warning him that a single failure would shatter the boy's fragile trust. Jared swore nothing would get in the way. By 3 o'clock, Naomi was pacing near the window of her office. The phone buzzed with notifications, emails, voicemails, reminders of a world Jared had sworn he'd stepped away from. She ignored them, checking the time again and again. At precisely 3:20, her phone rang. "Mommy?" Eli's small voice trembled through the line. "You're not here. And Mr. Jared, he's not here either." Naomi's chest tightened. Panic flared instantly. "Stay right where you are, baby. Don't move. Mommy's coming." She grabbed her keys and bolted for the door, fury and fear warring inside her. By the time she arrived at the school, Eli sat on the steps, clutching his backpack, eyes red from holding back tears. Beside him, Jared stood, breathless, tie undone, clearly having just rushed from somewhere. "I'm so sorry," he began as Naomi stormed up. Her glare could have cut steel. "Sorry?" He was alone for 20 minutes, Jared. 20 minutes wondering if anyone was coming for him. Eli buried his face against her waist, and Naomi wrapped an arm around him protectively. She turned her fury back to Jared. "You promised. You swore you wouldn't let him down." Jared's jaw tightened, his guilt etched across his face. "A meeting ran long. I left as soon as I could. I got here as fast as—" "A meeting," Naomi spat, disbelief lacing every syllable. "This is exactly what I warned you about. You haven't changed. You'll always choose business over family." The accusation hit harder than any boardroom ambush ever had. Jared opened his mouth to respond, but Naomi had already turned away, pulling Eli toward the car. "We're done here." Her words sliced deeper than he expected. Done. Just like that. That night, the storm between them raged silently. Naomi tucked Eli into bed, whispering comfort until he drifted off. Only then did she let herself collapse on the couch, tears sliding down her face. She had let herself hope again. Hope that Jared could be the father Eli deserved, the partner she once believed in. But hope, she reminded herself bitterly, was dangerous. Meanwhile, Jared stood alone in his penthouse, staring out over the glittering city skyline. The empire he had built stretched beneath him, shining proof of his success. And yet it felt hollow, empty. For the first time in years, he wished for none of it. He wanted the laughter of a boy calling him first mate, the warmth of Naomi's hand in his, the life he had so carelessly abandoned. But Naomi's voice haunted him. "We're done here." Still, Jared Blake wasn't a man who gave up easily. 2 days later, Naomi opened her front door to find Jared standing there, rain clinging to his hair, a box tucked under his arm. Her first instinct was to shut the door, but Eli's voice rang out behind her. "Mr. Jared." The boy ran past her, hugging Jared tightly. Jared knelt, holding him close. "Captain, I owe you an apology." Eli tilted his head. "For being late?" "Yes," Jared admitted, his voice breaking. "I made a mistake. And I don't want to make it again. So I brought something for us." He opened the box to reveal a handcrafted model ship, sails painted with Eli's favorite colors. The boy gasped in delight, running his fingers over the tiny ropes and wooden hull. "Can we build it together?" Eli asked eagerly. "Of course," Jared said. "But only if your mom says it's okay." Naomi's heart twisted at the sight. Eli's joy was pure, unguarded. But her own pain lingered. She crossed her arms, trying to keep her voice steady. "A model ship doesn't erase what happened." Jared stood, meeting her gaze. His expression was raw, stripped of the arrogance she once knew. "I know. But I'm not here to erase the past, Naomi. I'm here to build a future. I'll prove to you both that I can be better. Just give me the chance." Her defenses wavered. She hated how his words slipped beneath her armor, how the sincerity in his eyes stirred memories she had tried to bury. Eli tugged at her hand. "Please, Mommy? Can Mr. Jared stay?" The plea was innocent, yet powerful. Naomi looked at her son, then back at Jared. Finally, she sighed. One more chance. That's all. Relief washed over Jared's features, and for the first time in years, Naomi glimpsed the man she had fallen in love with. Not the businessman, not the empire builder, but the man who had once whispered promises under starlit skies. That evening, the three of them sat at the kitchen table, piecing together the model ship. Eli chattered endlessly, his laughter filling the house like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Jared listened to every word, his hands steady as he guided Eli's small fingers along the ropes. Naomi watched from across the table, her heart aching and healing all at once. At one point, Eli darted off to fetch more glue, leaving Jared and Naomi briefly alone. The silence was thick, yet charged. Jared glanced at her, his voice soft. "Thank you for letting me try again." Naomi met his gaze, her throat tight. "Don't make me regret it." For a heartbeat, their eyes held, the distance between them shrinking, the years of anger momentarily melting into something fragile and tender. Neither moved closer, but the unspoken longing hung in the air, undeniable. Eli returned, breaking the spell with his excited cheer. "Look, it's almost done." And in that small, ordinary moment, the three of them gathered around a half-built ship. Naomi realized something terrifying. Against all logic, against all her defenses, hope was stirring again. That night, after Jared left, Naomi stood at the window, watching his car disappear down the street. Her heart warred with itself. Trust was still fractured, but a flame she thought had died long ago flickered back to life. And Jared, driving into the rain-soaked night, felt more certain than ever. He had won fortunes, conquered industries, but this, Naomi Eli, the fragile beginning of a family, was the greatest treasure he would ever fight for.